Hello everybody, Steve back with another skate park tour. This time I'm in Cookeville, Tennessee at the Parkview skate park, which is what you see behind me. This park was opened in 2019, designed and built by Grindline skate parks. It's perched a little bit on top of a hill and has a good mix of street and transition obstacles. Definitely, since it was built within the last 6 years or so, it has more of a modern feel to it. Hubble edges and things like that are a little bit more accessible. Down rails are lower to the ground. Got a good mix of both low impact as well as kind of flowy street and transition. So what you see will probably make you want to come out. I think it's a good, well-designed skate park. And with that said, I'll take you through it. First thing you see when you come into the skate park is the transition area. A bunch of bowls, very flowy in nature. First things first is this 3/4 bowl that's about 4 feet deep. Skates very much like a mini ramp with bowled corners on it. Each side of it is well over 25 feet long and very standard kind of 4-foot transition, standard radius. And there's a little bit of like a roll up section before you roll down into a deeper part of the bowl. And so as I'm moving along here, you have about a 6-foot wall, which transitions into a deeper section. So the wall that I'm standing on is just kind of like a flat bank. And then you can see 3-foot quarters set into it. And then that's probably more like a 4-foot quarter. Bold section area matched with another 4-foot section, and then it transitions into a much deeper, I would say about 7-foot section, 7 or 8 feet. And that section over there has pool coping around it. So you got a 3/4 kind of open bowl flowing into like just a bank wall as well, and then there's some tighter quarters on both sides of it. So it's just got a really interesting mix of different transition lines, and then obviously super smooth as well. So let me get down in here and I'll show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about. All right, so now I'm down in the bottom of the bigger side of the bowl. As you can see around me, there's 4-foot quarters kind of staggered throughout with a big bank wall that's about 7 feet tall. And you see that the coping kind of transitions out into about a 3-foot quarter on the side. So kind of gives you the ability to either carve out of the bowl or carve into it, whatever direction you want to be coming from, before you get into a taller 8-foot bowled section with pool coping. And so this section, obviously you can see in front of me, there's a roll-in area. And then as I get down into the bottom of it, pretty standard transitions. Not much in the way of vert on this, maybe about 6 or 7 inches. But for the most part, the pool coping's in really good shape and definitely is accessible even if you're not that great of a transition skater. So it does have a lot of flow to it, and I think it's reflective of the fact that Grindline knows what they're doing, particularly when it comes to transition skating. Now, as we transition out of the bowl area, one thing I want to point out is something that's always amusing to me, and that is whenever you see like something added to a skate park that's not intended to be skated, but it's very skatable. And we have that with this handicap rail, where towards the end of it, you can actually ollie off the deck of the quarter and skate it like an out rail. So that is something that just amuses me. Granted, there's not a lot of ride-away room, but I know for a fact that that was not put there with the intention of it being a skatable flat bar, but it ends up being skatable. So it's amusing to me. Now heading more into the street area, we've got a 16-inch tall box that's about 10 feet long. Just kind of set up as another option to skate, although I have a feeling this gets used for people's drinks and stuff more often than it does for skating. But then you get into more of the street area. And so you start with a couple quarters. You can see there's a 3-foot kind of taco clamshell style quarter that you can ride on grind onto and ride all the way down if you want, but it's only about 3 feet tall. And then there's another 3-foot quarter that almost skates like an extension as a way to get speed. And then as I kind of move toward the right, you see there's this like 2-foot spine, single pipe, metal coping on it, that can either bring you back into the main bowl area or get you going into the street area. Now, one thing I do want to point out is there is this about 2.5-foot tall volcano, just for stalls or airs. Can skate it like a hip if you want, but just kind of mixes things up to give you a bunch of different line options. And then you've got a quarter pipe, but it also skates like your kind of San Francisco China bank, where you've got a bench set in it, or manual pad, whatever you want to call it. This thing is about 14 inches tall, and the coping for the bank is interesting because it's not rounded. It's definitely squared off, but it's got like that single piece of steel set onto the top of it, mainly for slides, but also works for grinds as well. And then we get into like probably the smallest of the street stuff. First is this 12-inch tall box that's about 12 feet long, 1.5 feet wide on top. And then you have a 12-inch tall flat bar, about 3-inch wide, piping, round rail. And this thing, I would say, is maybe about 10 feet long. So not super long in terms of a flat bar, but just your standard stuff. Then you get into a very steep and taller 4-foot hip. This thing, you know, obviously you can skate it like a bank ramp, but primarily intended to come from one direction to another and make a 90-degree turn, but good for flip tricks, nice and smooth. Not a lot of space on top, but reasonable enough to use it to get speed to either hit some of the quarters or come up and hit the Euro gap section. Lots of options here to learn on, especially. You've got twin Euro gaps, super small, only about curb height to get up to, so really can just almost pump over it if you wanted. And then you've got this like manual pad slash small hubble edge set into it. Only about 6 inches to get onto it if you're coming over the Euro gap, and it's probably only about 1 foot off the ground towards the end, so super mellow. Again, skates more like a manual pad than it does a hubble edge, and it's about 4 feet wide on top, so you got plenty of room to balance as well. Then you've got a square down rail. This thing is a little bit taller. I would say it's about, to get onto, maybe 16 inches tall, and then is about 2 feet tall at the end of it. Don't have to worry about sacking it, but needless to say, it's a little bit on the longer side. I would say it's about 10 feet long. So it gives you a nice long slide, and it's about like a 2x4 stood on end, so about 2 inches wide on top. Not the biggest thing in the world to lock into, but still decent. And then you've got kind of this wall ride kind of carve around area bank with like this little almost like 3-stair Euro gap as well. So if that's something that you like, you got a little bit more option than just the smaller standard Euro gaps over the side there. Another low impact item is this out ledge. This thing is only about 2 feet tall at the end, and then about 1 foot tall to get onto, so not too difficult to skate, and nice and long from an out ledge perspective. The out ledge part's probably about 8 feet long. Unfortunately though, it only is front side for regular footed skaters, backside for goofy. There's not like a twin option to it until whenever the time comes for more concrete to be added. Not really sure why they didn't just add more concrete along the side there, but is what it is. Sometimes you're dealing with budgets and all that stuff. And then lastly, we've got this additional street section with bump to bar slash down rails, bump to ledge slash small hubble edges. You know, skating in either direction works both front side and back side. regardless of your stance. So the out ledges and out rail, the out rail is only about 12 inches off the ground, maybe 14. So pretty easy to get onto, especially if you're coming out of the bump. And then the down rail as well is not too difficult to get onto. And that thing is about 10 feet long or so. This section is about 8 feet long. The hubble ledges, it feels like they're not as long, but they're equal in length. They're not too difficult to get onto as well. I will say that they're a little bit taller than the rail. The getting onto it's maybe about 16 inches tall. And then getting onto the out ledge part, and this actually slopes down a little bit like an A-frame. This is only about 14 inches. And like I said, you've got one for front side or back side, regardless of your stance. Finally, in the back, we've got this quarter pipe set in the middle of a bank, so you could kind of grind off the side if you wanted to, or air off the side into the bank. Not sure why you would, but you can. I think it's more just if you don't feel comfortable dropping in, you've got something to roll into, especially if you're a little kid just getting started. But this quarter is, I would say, about 3.5 feet tall or so, and then 8 or 10 feet wide. So plenty of room to set up and turn around and hit the bump to rail or bump to ledges. So kind of a nice little setup there. So that does it for the skate park tour of the Cookeville, Tennessee skate park in Parkview Park. That's a lot of parks. I feel kind of cold right now, so I'm not going to hang out and draw this out much longer, but obviously this skate park has a good mix of both street and transition obstacles. So if you're in the kind of northeast Tennessee area, you definitely want to come check out this skate park. Otherwise, if you have any questions about the park, just drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I think I covered just about everything other than the fact that there are nice shade structures for the summer. There's a bathroom that's currently closed because it was vandalized, and there are no lights at this skate park, so you'll have to come during the day. Other than that, that's about it. So I'll see you in the next skate park tour video. Thanks for watching.